Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Lab by Comsi, the place of everything related to Amazon and e-commerce in general. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomsi. Today, we bring you a very special guest. His name is Gregory Elfrink, and he's the director of marketing at Empire Flippers, which is a place where they specialize on buying and selling online businesses and also Amazon FBA related business. So actually, that's why I think today's topic is going to be very interesting because we're going to be touching around what are the things usually buyers are looking for, or what are some of the common traps that we should be avoiding whenever you want to sell your Amazon FBA business. But before we dig further into that, I want to introduce you, Gregory. How you doing today? Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully, I'll be able to add some value to the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure to have you here. I think lately, you know how is the space being around buying and selling Amazon businesses, the whole aggregator thing. I mean, it's been booming the last few years. So I think now it's perfect timing because I think a lot of people is thinking about what they should do with their Amazon businesses, and also some investors want to jump into the space. So I think it's gonna be great that we can touch some of those topics today. But before we get started into that, I usually like to give a few minutes at the beginning of all my episodes so you can introduce yourself. Just give a brief introduction in terms of how you jump into the e-commerce space, how you got to work in e-commerce flippers, and then we can dig further into the topic. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I come from a very strange background. I used to be a oil field roughneck in Alaska in the Arctic Circle, drilling for oil. So
Wow.
I absolutely hated it, and I self-taught myself internet marketing. So my background is
That's great.
content marketing and SEO, and I ended up joining up with EF. I was employee number 4. Now we're over 100
Wow.
employees, and when I was originally hired, I was just like the blogger. So
Yeah.
my job has gotten much more complex than it used to be.
I can imagine.
But yeah, that's kind of the cliff notes of how I got involved into the whole space. Always been absolutely obsessed with internet marketing and the power of what it can do for someone. I've seen so many entrepreneurs build these amazing businesses, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So I've always been obsessed with the space, even before I got in with EF.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think I mean e-commerce. We all know that is one of the few business models that you can start with so little and you can do such a big. You can reach the success so fast, and you can do such amazing things when it comes to having a tight budget. But at the same time, if you put the time and effort, those few business models that for sure can pay off, right? So I think that's great. That usually I mean, specifically when I work with clients, they have a background and before jumping into e-commerce, usually they come from backgrounds that it's very difficult to reach that kind of success, right? With such a limited amount of money. So it's great that you have a similar journey in that perspective. Now, when it comes to Empire Flippers, I mean, Empire Flippers, I know is one of the first, if not the first marketplaces when it comes to selling and buying Amazon businesses, right? So I think can we briefly touch how Empire Flippers came into the perspective of selling Amazon businesses? Because I know that from the very beginning that wasn't the focus of the business model. So can you briefly touch on that? What was the thing that made the transition into that? And the details around. Yeah.
Sure. So I think one thing that a lot of people forget about us with all the FBA rage is like Amazon FBA is just one business model we sell. We actually sell tons of different business models. So like
Yeah.
affiliate sites, apps, et cetera, et cetera. We've sold pretty much everything, like KDP businesses even. So when I first began back in 2016, the main business we sold were content sites, usually monetized through
Okay.
affiliate links and display ads. That was our bread and butter. But what happened is, so we're very big in the digital nomad community because we're a digital nomad company
Yeah.
ourselves. Like I'm in Vietnam right now, right? Like
Yeah.
we
Living the
just
life.
travel all around the world. Um, so a lot of our digital nomad friends, they had started FBA businesses, and usually when a new hot thing happens, like we would see the effects of that, like maybe a year or two after it gets hot, because it takes a while for the businesses to build up that runway or the data to actually be sellable, right? So
Sure.
as you said, I'm pretty sure we were the actual first
Yeah.
to sell FBA businesses. I don't know anyone else who was doing it at the time. Like I remember specifically we had to talk to Amazon's customer service to let them know that you could sell an FBA business because they didn't
Yeah.
believe us. Like, no, that's not a thing. Like, no, it really is.
I
Like we had to
remember it
like
was
talk to
kind
them.
of a taboo. It was a taboo that you didn't know if
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
legal
yeah.
or not. So
Right. And I remember there was this prospect, I think it was a seller. He asked why should he sell with us over this other brokerage?
yeah.
And our salesperson, they went to their website and they took a screenshot because on their website it said Amazon FBA coming soon. Like, well, that might be your first clue you should go with us because they're not even like doing it yet.
Wow, wow.
So yeah, we were there in the first, and how it became such a big deal for us is like so many of our friends in the space had these businesses, and that just transitioned. And once the aggregators came about, something we knew would eventually happen, that this aggregator model would likely happen. We were in the perfect throes of helping them out. So in a weird way, the aggregators are, in a sense, I feel like are almost like my children in a weird way, because like when they first started out, they had no private deal flow, they had no idea what they were doing. It was very early days, so like the vast majority of all businesses they bought were from us back then.
That's
But
great.
yeah, that's kind of like the TLDR of how it all happened.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. I think this whole thing, to be honest, it grew so fast. I mean, if we actually take back around 2 3 years, selling Amazon business wasn't really common. Now I'm pretty sure you get DMs or emails every day. Oh, do you have an Amazon business that you can sell? Or so it's becoming crazy, to be honest. But great. Now let's start shifting a little bit the conversation towards today's topic, and of course, afterwards, we're gonna also jump into how Empire Flippers can help into the sellers compensating these issues we usually see whenever you buy and want to sell a business in the Amazon space. So I would like to start by touching on what is usually the type of criteria that you see people in your platforms, in this case the buyers, that they are looking for whenever they are going into Empire Flippers and they want to purchase an Amazon business. What do you would you say is the main criteria they usually like to see on an Amazon business?
Sure. So buyers are quite a diverse breed. So it depends on who the buyer is, right? Like an aggregator is going to have very different criteria than, say,
Yeah, for
a
sure.
bootstrap entrepreneur or a first time investor, right? In terms of like a seven figure kind of deal, which I think is probably what like most people are really excited to
Yeah,
do. And some of this will like water down to other valuations too, so I can speak generally on this. But like
for sure.
one of the things is like don't have just one product. You could sell one product only business, like a one SKU only business. It's not a problem, but you have to think of it in the perspective of the buyer. Like for a buyer, like buying a one product only business, that's has a lot more risks to it, right? Especially if
Yeah.
it's like a seven figure business. Unless your aggregators raise like hundreds of millions of dollars, it's
Yeah,
like
and you
a
don't
drop
care.
in the bucket for you, right? But for a average investor, like that could be a significant drop in the bucket for them. So that's one thing, and no one product making up say over 50% of revenue. You want that to have like a good even spread, and likewise, you want to have a diversity of traffic. So if you are selling all of your products through like say Facebook ads that you're driving traffic to your Amazon listing, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have the same issue as the one product only business. Like, what happens if your Facebook ad account goes down? Like, well, you may not have a business very soon, right? So, like, this
Yeah.
is stuff that buyers would be looking at, and I think one of the mistakes that a seller makes, and to be honest, even buyers make this mistake at times, is that evaluation isn't so much about your growth potential as much as about your risk potential. So
Hmm.
the less risky the business is, you tend to get a more premium valuation, right? So what you're looking to do as a buyer and as a seller is to find something that you think has the stability, the reliability, and of course growth. You still want growth in there, but you're really looking for something that doesn't have as much risk as say another FBA, unless of course you're a buyer that buys like distressed assets, which that's a whole different
Yeah.
type of buyer business
Yeah.
model,
Yeah.
which can be very lucrative as long as
If
you
you
know how
know.
to fix the
Yeah.
problem you're buying, right? So I would recommend it
Yeah.
for a newbie to go do that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, buyers is, I totally agree with you. I have many buyers that have completely different metrics one to another. So at the end of the day, is what is your goal in terms of the investment and the asset you're buying, and then what you want to do down the line once you buy. So I think that makes a big shift when it comes to buying an Amazon business. However, I also think that for sure there are some type of business that I have seen a lot of people not even don't even touch it. For example, CBD related Amazon businesses,
Yeah.
supplement brands are becoming more tricky now. So I'm pretty sure that also when it comes to impart flippers, you guys have some kind of criteria that you try to stay away from, right?
Yeah, so we won't sell anything with CBD or hemp products. It's like we'll just like flat out reject it, and it's not because they're like bad businesses in our view. Like we're actually totally fine with that. The issue is like it's still such a gray zone with
It's
Amazon.
great.
Like, and you're right. Like a lot of buyers just simply do not like it because they also see the gray zone, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Like evaluation is much more about risk than growth a lot of the times, and CBD presents a very strong risk. So, like, even if you do sell it, unless you have someone who's just absolutely crazy about CBD, you're going to get a much lower valuation if you do get to sell it for those reasons. Typically, not all the time.
Yes. So that means that when it comes to the criteria of impact flipper, besides the actual, I mean, let me rephrase the question. Let's say a person wants to sell the Amazon business and
Mhm.
place the business on impact flippers. Is there any type of a basic metric in terms of revenue that you would advise people
Yeah, yeah. So it's
to
a.
consider?
Oh, sorry, you're cutting out a
Yeah,
little
to
bit for me.
consider.
Yeah, the minimum threshold for revenue is actually quite small for us. So you only have to be making $2,000 a month in revenue over your or sorry, in profit over the last 12 months on average, right? So it's not like a huge barrier of entry. So like people forget this about us too. Like, but we sell quite the range. So we sell $80,000 Amazon FBA businesses all the way up to like right now we're selling a $24 million
Wow.
Amazon FBA business, right? So that's a big range.
Yeah, big one.
Um, so
Yeah.
like as long as this is not like super small, and it's not CBD, you most likely could sell it with us.
That's great. And when it comes to the actual transition in terms of a person listing their business on the platform and getting the business sold, how long would you say usually does it take the whole process on average, so people can have an understanding on how long will usually take if they want to sell the Amazon business with
Sure.
Empire Flippers in this case?
Yeah. So once you're through our vetting process, and vetting could take anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity and the size of the business. Once you're actually live on the marketplace, typically most of the Amazon FBA businesses are sold within 26 days, I believe is the number.
Wow,
So
that's good.
once it's sold, though, there you have the most annoying part of doing an Amazon FBA exit, which is the actual migrating the asset over. Anyone who's done it knows is a real pain in the butt. Like if you can do an account transfer where the buyer's taking over your Seller Central account, it goes a lot smoother. But some people,
Yeah,
they have multiple brands in there, so you have to do a product listing transfer, and
that's
that can
correct.
sometimes take extra weeks. Like the deal's done, the money's in the bank account and is in escrow, right? And it's just kind of like hurry up and wait with Amazon. So that makes everything like extend out a little bit if you have to do a product listing takeover instead of an account takeover. But the actual sales process can go by very quickly. Like I said, on average, about 26 days.
I see. And when it comes to you guys helping with the whole transition, because I know that a lot of people in the space, like brokers, people that specialize into helping with the whole transition of buying and selling the business, they don't help with the whole account transfer and all the logistics that involves. So I know you guys actually help with that, right? In terms of helping with the transfer of the account. So can you briefly touch on that and how that helps you differentiate from other marketplaces in the space? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So we do things a little bit differently than other brokers, right? So, one, we have a vetting team, which most brokers don't have. And as far as I know, no broker helps you with the migrations. They just kind
Yeah,
of like,
that's
all right, good
that's
luck,
what I was saying.
go
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it.
If something
So we've
happens that
always,
you get suspended,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, like I washed myself of this. Thank you for the transaction. Good luck. But we have an entire team dedicated to the process, right? and they will help you through all the technical setups. Like we've seen so many of the obstacles, we can help you troubleshoot. And most other brokers, they have a like a fair reason why they don't do it, is they're afraid of the liability, which
Yeah.
that can be pretty intense if something goes wrong. Luckily, that like it's never really happened with us out of
Mm.
the hundreds of deals we sold. Not saying
Yeah.
that it couldn't. We've been very lucky in that regard. But
Yeah.
we believe like, hey, if this doesn't go well, if this transfer doesn't go well, then everything up to this point was done for nothing. We shouldn't leave you on the ninth inning. We're
Yeah,
like,
for
let's help
sure.
you out. And the other thing we do there, and I'm not sure if other brokers actually manage this or not. They might, but our migrations team, they'll also manage the earnouts. Like, so if you get an earnout deal structure, all that kind of stuff, we actually help you manage that entire thing. So
That's
you
great.
can go as an entrepreneur and focus on your other brand. Like, you're not the one who have to be the debt collector. Like, hey, you owe me this money.
Yeah,
Like,
pay
we
me.
have to do that for you, right? And we get paid alongside with you. So our incentives are all aligned there.
That's good. Um, what also I would like to ask you, because now that we're touching this and comparing your service to other service providers in this type of business, which is buying selling Amazon businesses, what would you say is the main advantage in terms of coming directly to you and posting their business into the marketplace, right? Than going to maybe advisor or something along those lines. So what would you say is the main difference, or the main benefit maybe a seller could get in terms of the outcome of selling the Amazon business? Yeah.
Yeah, you're asking like specifically with us versus say like another broker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think some of the big advantages of using us, especially if you're planning on being a serial entrepreneur, like run more brands that you can sell, is when you use us, we're much more like an assembly line. So we've taken the traditional brokerage model, where it's like one broker per business, and you basically get our entire team for your one business that you're selling, because we've broken that what is traditionally a one person job into multiple different departments. So you have all these people who are like specialized, skilled in this specific area of the M&A process, right? The other thing is our buyer network is very, very healthy. We have a buyer network now with $6 billion in verified liquidity,
Wow. That's good.
which is a nice number. Yeah,
I like it.
we actually started tracking that number internally because of our new platform, our engineers design. We thought, oh, this would be a cool number to track, right?
Yeah.
And then it just started like growing at this like
Boom, going up.
incredible rate. Like, oh wow, we have a lot of buyer power here. So it's
That's
more than we
good.
expected, but that's huge. We have a very solid, like if you're a seven figure FBA seller, like every aggregator shops with us pretty much. Now a lot of them are moving more up market, like above the $10 million range, but everyone that shops underneath the $10 million range, they all shop with us. And from like, I don't know if they're lying to me or not, but they always tell me like we're their favorite to work with because of that assembly line
I mean, yeah,
process. So
for sure.
from like their perspective, every now and then they'll go with a broker, and then they'll buy the second or third business, and the process is completely different, and they're like, what is this? Yeah, this is
Yeah,
not at all like the way we did it the first time. So that's some stuff you can expect from us. We're very process oriented.
that's great. Yeah, I mean, I also think that the huge advantage you guys have is for sure the amount of extra years you have compared to others. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have seen everything in terms of troubleshooting. You already have a huge team, so that for sure helps you a lot to provide a great service like you guys are providing right now, which is great. Now, I would like to also touch on maybe what are some of the things can affect a person whenever they go to this transition, because I have also seen people that they think they're preparing the business correctly and they're preparing the business fully optimal for exit, but then they realize when it comes the time to valuing the business, they are nowhere near where they thought they were going to be, right? And usually these things, at least from my experience, I have seen that it happens because prior to 6 months of selling the business, they start experimenting with new products, they start experimenting with new advertising strategies, they try to do their own Shopify store. So, because today's topic is also meant to touch on some of those mistakes in terms of that can affect your valuation, it would be nice if you can also briefly touch on what are the things people should stop doing maybe 6 months, 1 year before selling, and what are the things they should focus to get the maximum out of the valuation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So all the things you just mentioned there are definitely things to stop doing like 6 months out. Like
Okay.
we've rejected many very quality businesses that are just like scaling all this experimental marketing up to the point of when they want to list, and it's just like, this ruins your valuation because like it's still in the experimental phase, right? So we definitely tell people to stop doing that. Other things is like clean up all your SOPs, your standard
Yeah,
operating procedures. That's something a lot of FBA owners is, most of us are solopreneurs, right? It's just like
yeah,
us and maybe like a couple of VAs. So
yeah.
think like, oh, I know how to run the business. Why do I need to do this? But it's like it's not for you, it's for the buyer, right? It's
Yeah, for
this
sure.
their operator's manual. So that is like a really nice selling point to have. The other thing you didn't mention, but this is by far, in my view, the biggest plague on FBA sellers when they go to try to do an
Mhm.
exit, is their books, their profit and loss statement, their
Mm,
QuickBooks. It's
that's
a
huge. Yeah.
mess, and
They
like,
use an
and then like
Excel.
of
They use
course,
an Excel, and that's
right?
it.
Yeah. So like we'll build your P&L for you. Like if you sell with EF, we'll build the P&L for you from scratch, because usually it's a lot easier for us to rebuild it from scratch than like try to like figure out the mess
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you most likely
yeah.
made. And sometimes sellers realize like, oh, I am not making nearly as much money as I thought I was once they see the actual P&L. So one tip I would give to any sellers, if the audience out there like does not want to use EF, like I hate Greg, I hate Empire Flippers, I'm gonna use someone else. Like I would highly recommend you hire a bookkeeper with actual e-commerce experience, and let the bookkeeper know you want your P&L done in a accrual basis, not cash basis. Most entrepreneurs run their business on cash basis, but when you go to sell a business, you want it to be accrual. That could literally be the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the business size.
That's great. Yeah, I mean that's a huge tip for sure. I forgot that. Yeah, I actually, now that you mentioned that, I have seen that a lot. People that run seven-figure businesses, and when you look at the books, is they don't even know how much profit they're doing,
Chaos.
right? So,
Yeah.
so
What is this
that's
whirlwind of numbers before me?
yeah, it's a big issue to be honest. It's a huge one for sure. Now, before we start concluding today's episode, is there anything else you think we should have touched in terms of things that sellers in this case will have to consider when it comes to preparing for selling their business? Also, is there any type of mistakes besides all the ones we have mentioned so far you think they should also be aware, or you think we have covered the most important points so they can get ready to start the business?
Yeah, the only final mistake I'll talk about, and this is going to sound super self-promotional, but I really do not mean it in this way. It's just I've seen so much in my 6 years that I feel like I should say this, because this is a mistake I see. So there's something I call the off-market fallacy, and it sounds
Mm,
very like
yeah,
justified when you think about it, but it's like, I'm a seller. I don't want to use a broker like EF or some other broker because I don't want to pay a commission, right? So I'm going to sell it privately. And I have nothing against you selling privately. Like if that's the right move for you, it's the right move. But you want to be careful, because a lot of times buyers, especially in the Amazon FBA space now, they tend to be a lot savvier because they're buying more businesses than you are selling. Like
yeah,
aggregators are buying several businesses a month, right?
yeah,
So you want to be careful there, because the buyer will absolutely agree with you. Like, yes, you are so smart to not pay that commission, but that usually translates into the buyer's favor by getting you for way less of what you're actually worth. And the buyer wants you to believe that, because they don't want you to tell, the rest of the marketplace you're for sale, because that creates this
yeah,
bidding war, competition, all that kind of stuff. And the only benefit a buyer gets by going private, by not using a broker, because they don't pay the broker, right? The seller pays the
yeah,
broker. The only benefit they get is they get you for potentially much cheaper than what you could have sold for. And I've seen this play out many times. There was a guy, he had a business for 1.4 million. We ended up selling it for 2.1 million. And then I was just at Affiliate World Dubai speaking over there. Happened to run into one of my customers, and she told me she got an offer from an aggregator for $600,000, and she
wow,
was so glad she didn't, because she had heard me talk about the off-market fallacy, as it turns out. So she came to came to us to see what we could do, and we ended up selling that business for 1.6 million. So
wow,
like
that's a
this is a
huge
big
thing.
thing. Oh yeah. The buyer psychology that they use on sellers can be pretty advanced because they have all that M&A background. The seller doesn't. So I'm not saying don't sell privately. Just be very aware that that exists, because that can also be the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% with you on this because I think you have the fallacy that by doing on your own, you're gonna save on the fees and all that. But the reality is that because you're not gonna have a full team, like in this case, in Power Flippers, valuing your business and cleaning it up, they're gonna make sure they give you cheap change in terms of just buying your business. And
Right.
because you haven't compared anything else, yet you think you're hitting the lotto, but you actually, I mean, you're losing more than if actually paying the actual fee. You see what I mean? So it's
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. Like those sellers paid us a lot more commission than they were expecting, right? But they also walked away with way more money in their wallet at the end of the day. So, they won in the end, because that's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
yeah, for sure, 100%. That's great. So I think everything today that we've been discussing is great. I think all the advice you provide is very valuable, so I appreciate that. So before we conclude the episode, I think I also want to give you a few minutes just to explain to people how, let's say, an Amazon seller right now is listening to this or watching this, and they want to list their business in Empire Flippers. Can you briefly touch where they should go, or how they can get in touch with your team to get the process going?
Sure. Yeah. So you can go to empireflippers.com. There's a little button that says sell your business. Just click on that and that'll get your process started. Or you can check out our evaluation tool, get like a rough estimate using our like real sales back data. If someone wants to get a hold of me personally, it's just Greg at empireflippers.com. Or you can add me on LinkedIn. I think excuse me, my LinkedIn is just LinkedIn/Greg. I think it's Greg the writer, because I write a lot.
Yeah,
So
that's
feel
great.
free to send me a connection. I'm usually pretty easy to get a hold of.
That's great, Greg. Thank you very much once again for your time. And definitely looking forward to see you on the next one. Okay. Have an amazing day.
For sure.
Bye.